Good evening and welcome to the December 16th, 2025 Mathews County School Board Budget Work Session and Public Employee Requests for 2026-2027 School Budget. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and Mrs. Hundley, may we have a roll call taken, please?
Mr. Morgan?
Present.
Ms. Diggs?
Here.
Mrs. Hodges?
Here.
Dr. Gibbs?
Present. Thank you. Item number 2, for public and employee requests for 2026-2027 school budget. Item 2.1, we are offering the opportunity for public budget requests. Currently, we do not have any public members of the county at our meeting. We will move to item 2.2, the employee budget requests and survey. Dr. Daniel, would you like to address the survey?
At this time, we don't have a representative from the Faculty and Staff Advisory Committee. That group, I had asked that group back in October to work on developing a survey to pass out to members of the teaching staff. I'll follow up with the Faculty and Staff Advisory to see if we can either get that survey finalized and distributed to board members to gain a little broader input on budget. Yes,
thank you. Why don't we go to item 3, the review of 2026-2027 division budget requests to date with you, Dr. Daniel, our superintendent, and we'll give opportunity for the work session presentation to be made.
Hi, I guess we're still in the afternoon. So I'll run through a couple things for the board work session. You all don't have a copy of this in board docs yet. We'll upload it to board docs. I was still working on it as of about 2:55 today. So a couple pieces for review in terms of our funding sources. So over the last several years, I wanted to track and show kind of where we've been with regards to state revenue, federal revenues, local operating, and then other local, and then sort of our overall total. So a couple highlights to note. So our state revenue, while it went up slightly this past fiscal year, it is still a decline from where we were in FY23. Our projected, the budget that we are operating off of right now is about $1 million less in state revenue from where we were in FY23. Again, federal revenues are similar. So what we are anticipating, what we are operating off of in FY26 compared to where we were in FY23 is about 1/3 of that federal revenue. Local operating, so that's the allocation from the locality directly from Mathews County. So while that number is down slightly, about $600,000 from last year, keep in mind too that the Mathews County took over all of utility costs, maintenance costs. So while those numbers aren't reflected in our budget, we're not responsible then for those expenditures. So a big chunk of that, those costs, all of those costs are now being absorbed by the county. So that's that FY25 to FY26 reduction is, it's not misleading because the numbers are the numbers, but knowing what's behind those numbers and some of the decisions in place behind those numbers. And then the other funding, other local revenue, that varies from year to year. There are a lot of things that go into that other line item. That's rents, that's reimbursements for things. So that number tends to fluctuate. So our overall funding, our overall revenue sources is like we're down we're operating this year at about 15.9 million. Again, that's with maintenance and utility costs being absorbed by the county. But still, our overall operating costs have continued to decline, although the Mathews contribution to the school division has continued to, in reality, increase. Okay. I tend to keep this in any of the presentations. It's the formula for determining the local composite index. I'm not going to turn this into a math lesson, but basically those are the variables that go into the local composite index. So it's local tax rates, local adjusted gross income as a proportion or a piece of state values. So it's local values against state values, and then there's a population component within that too. So this is the updated local composite index. So each one of those blue columns is a school division within Virginia. In yellow is Mathews, the light blue is Middlesex, the red is Gloucester, and orange is West Point with their respective local composite index figures. Mathews from the 24-25 composite index to the 26-27 had the third highest increase in the state. So we went from 0.5904 to 0.6637. That's a significant jump. And the local composite index gets adjusted every 2 years. So to think about, the big change for us is in our student enrollment over those 2 years. So we've dropped more kids. Therefore, the thinking part of that formula then becomes, okay, well, real estate values have continued to go up. There's more ability to fund a fewer number of students in Mathews County is how that index is supposed to work. So Mathews, in terms of funding going forward for the next biennium, our local composite is 0.6637. Some of our enrollment trends. So from our September 30 count since 2003, so over about 22 years. So about 22 years ago, we were just under 1,300 students. This year, we were right at about 759 students. That's about a 40% decline in enrollment in those 22 years. Thinking about our staffing levels. So we've talked a little bit about staffing during these work sessions. So I developed a table with the help of Ms. Hunley to look at our staffing across various departments. So division staffing levels have gone from 19 to 20 down to 18. Transportation, and these are full-time and part-time positions. So transportation we end up with, depending on outplacements in various places, we'll have a lot of part-time drivers. So transportation has been 36, 31, and then we're currently at 38 right now. Food services we're down to 16. That food services count does include Meals on Wheels, because our Meals on Wheels folks, that whole those employees and all the accounts run through the school system. So those folks are on our books. When we get to Mathews High School, Thomas Hunter Middle School, and Mathews Elementary School, you'll see two numbers. The number in parentheses is the licensed employees at each school. So in 2023-24, there were 56 employees at Mathews High School, 31 of whom were licensed. That goes up in terms of licensed employees, but down overall as we moved 8th grade over to Mathews High School. However, then in 25-26, this current year, we're at 46 and 32. At Thomas Hunter, you can see Thomas Hunter goes down pretty dramatically. That's because of 8th grade going to the high school. 5th grade this year, this summer, went over to the elementary school. So you have 2 grade levels being moved from Thomas Hunter, and so that's a big part of that reduction. At the elementary school, again, going from 55 and 30 down to 50 and 32, even with the inclusion of an additional grade level. So overall, total full-time and part-time in 2023-24, we were at 224 employees. This current school year, we're at 183. Again, thinking about what's behind the numbers, these previous years included custodians. So we still have custodians in our building, obviously, but they aren't Mathews employees. In 23-24, there were 12 custodians. So in 25-26, there are 0 custodians employed by our school division. So 12 of that number comes from custodial. Also, the maintenance merger, those employees, anybody with maintenance is employed by the county, not by the schools. So that's about 14 of those employees. But again, there are reductions in staff across licensed areas, support staff areas to, again, as student enrollment has declined, our staffing has also declined as well. Salary scale comparison. So this is the comparison last year. I've done this, and I did it in 23 and again in 24 to take a look at where we were in 24. Again, trying to remain competitive with our neighbors in West Point, Middlesex, and Gloucester in terms of comparing the salary scale. And there are lots of things that go into the scale that are difficult to easily compare. So supplements and stipends and extended contracts and things along those lines aren't always in that scale and easy to compare. We have variabilities within our Mathews salary scale. For example, we have longevity supplements that wouldn't necessarily be on the scale that our employees earn after certain years of service that would increase their overall compensation. But just looking at the scales themselves, you can see where a gap widens at 20 and 30 years. So this is in 2024. Looking at it for 2025. So so if you can kind of glance and see, well, I didn't do all the color coding. The gap, especially with West Point and Gloucester, it has widened from 24 to 25. We had made progress from 23 into 24. Last year coming into this year, that gap again widened. So we're pretty comparable with Middlesex and Gloucester at 0 years experience. But again, that gap begins to grow at 10 and then again at 20 and then again at 30. And in terms of recruitment of teachers, I think in my short time here, I don't think we've hired a teacher directly from college. So we're not hiring, able to hire folks from, like with 0 years experience. Most of the time we're hiring staff members who are in that 0 to 5, or they're in that 25 to 30 range. They're kind of in those 2 bands. Either they're young teachers who have just located to the area, or they've heard good things about Mathews, or they're a veteran teacher who is kind of, the family has relocated with eyes on retirement shortly, And so they want kind of a different, a slower pace, if you will. So those are kind of where we've been in terms of hiring staff members. But being able to compete in that 20 and 30 year experience levels is difficult for us right now. The other thing we did last year was take a look at our health insurance comparison, and kind of like salary scales, there's just a lot of variability in health insurance plans across divisions in terms of options and deductibles and coverages. So what I did last year, and then what I tried to do quickly this year, was to look at the lowest cost option versus the highest cost option, and then if they had a high deductible option available. So the top couple rows are where we are with Mathews. So if you're an individual on the Centera plan, you're paying $68 a month. If you chose the local choice Anthem as a single individual, it's $237 a month. Or if you did the high deductible plan, it's $65. If you have the low, wait, where are we? Okay, so let me try it right-handed. It gets lost somewhere. Okay, so but for the family, for the Centera plan, it's $679 a month. For the Anthem plan, it's at $1,100. High deductible then gets it $687. So and then looking at our competitors in terms of size, insurance-wise, when we look at West Point and Middlesex, the difference being their plan options and costs. So we're the only one that offers Centera as an option. Everybody else has different versions, basically, of Anthem. But they have kind of a lower cost Anthem and a higher cost Anthem policies, and there you can see the difference. Where we get the Centera becomes relatively competitive, and I think we're competitive with West Point and Middlesex in terms of our insurance, our healthcare options. We're nowhere close to competitive with insurance options when you compare it to Gloucester, especially if we're half the cost of a family plan, or Mathews is double the family plan cost for health insurance. Gloucester doesn't. They have many more options, so they don't offer like a low-cost Anthem and a high-cost Anthem. Their flexibility is in they have employee plus one, employee plus kids, employee plus spouse, employee family, whereas a lot of divisions are employee spouse, or employee family. There's not kind of that variable for just your kids. So that's like kind of one of the other, again, variables that makes it difficult to do health insurance comparison. Okay, so in terms of priorities and things that we've talked about over the last month or so in terms of budget development, and going back again to strategic plan, increasing student achievement. So our goal has to maintain a quality staff deployed effectively. So we have to have the right people, and we have to deploy those people in the best ways. And also having access to high quality instructional materials. So we're going to have costs associated with upcoming textbook adoptions, and being able to access intervention materials and just instructional materials, and being able to budget for those things, along with furniture needs and technology needs for our classrooms. Talking a little bit about our salary scale, so being able to retain quality staff, knowing that other localities are going to need to fill positions as well. We've embarked on a salary scale study. We have been collaborating with that thought partner. We'll have some of that information back in January, because that will help inform some of our budgeting needs. I'm anticipating kind of a multi-year phase-in to help adjust that salary scale and make us competitive and get us to close that gap. I'm not sure we're gonna have the same salary scale as West Point anytime soon, but I think we have to have a plan in place to close that gap and to be competitive. And also in terms of compensation, a big thing last year was we were able to provide a salary increase, but we had to pass on a large chunk of health insurance premiums to our staff as well. That ate quite a bit of that salary increase. So it became, I don't want to say nominal, but it was not the compensation increase that I think folks had hoped it was going to be. In terms of safety and facility upgrades, being able to budget for 2 school resource officers. We've had conversations with the county about, while if it's in our budget, like, they're not our employees, so managing that movement of funds from, you know, if it stays in our budget, then who's writing the check then to the sheriff's office to cover the costs for school resource officers? But I think we need to keep in mind having that number, having that placeholder in our budget for planning purposes with the county. We've heard about the need for athletic trainer. Currently in our current budget, there's a placeholder for contracting for an athletic trainer, but we heard from individuals, I think it was last month, the need for a full-time Mathews County Public Schools athletic trainer, to put that back into the budget. Energy efficiency, that's sort of a placeholder to acknowledge county costs associated with a lot of our upgrades. So the county's going to have increasing costs for, I know with capital improvements, they're still looking at boiler replacements and lighting replacements and things along those lines. So there's a desire to upgrade facilities and costs that are associated with upgrading and modernizing our facilities that will come with some energy savings, but there's that's going to be part of those facilities upgrades as well. And then 4 is basically hearing from you all to start the conversation, start the debate about priorities that board members have and thoughts that board members have that where you all want us to begin planning for and seeing what we can prioritize with the budget. Questions about anything in the slides before we discuss?
Yes, I have a question regarding the licensure piece. We could move back to that slide. On the number that are licensed, does that include provisional?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are positions held by licensed staff. So that is teachers, school counselors, library media specialists, licensed instructional staff.
Does it include, maybe you've answered the question, but does it include people who are on track to receive certification in specific positions?
Yes. So let me see if I can clarify. That is based on the position, not the person. So if the position requires a VDOE issued license and a teaching library media specialist or school counseling area,
So the admin, although they have a license, is not included in the parentheses. They would be in the other category. Okay.
Dr. Daniels, on the division there, the 18 we have over for this year, who does that include?
So that's anybody at the school board office. That includes our IT folks. Who else am I missing?
Office of Special Education.
Okay. Everybody at special ed, federal programs.
Okay.
School social worker, secondary reading specialist,
Okay, thank you.
speech language pathologist.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
regarding the transportation numbers, the 38 is, I'm a bit perplexed as to, is it we have more in a cadre of people that are available to help drive, I'm assuming it's like the buses, versus last year was 31. So are there just more people that Mr. Worrells has to select from, or do we have more students being transported to out-of-county placements?
Our out-of-county placements are, again, I think this too was a snapshot in October. So some of those out-of-county placements grew from October of '24 through last year, and those are still in place for this year. So there was some growth that is reflected in that 38. So I think from October of '24 until December of '25, I think we do have some additional outplacements. So sometimes it may require us to send 2 cars, or if 2 students can't ride in the car together, it's the same number of outplacements, but I've got to put them in separate vehicles now to get them to the same destination. We may at times hire additional aides to be on buses to support students during the transportation, or we may need to put them due to an IEP need to have them in a separate car, and sometimes a car with an aide to bring them to school. So with regards to, I don't know that I can give you the exact detail that we went from, this number of out-of-placements to that number of out-of-placements, but that's usually the case. Because our bus routes are the same, so the variability is going to be a little bit in substitute drivers perhaps, or individual car drivers or aides that go along with those car drivers for out-of-placement purposes, out-of-division placement.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Daniel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving to item 4, discussion by board members. So this is the opportunity for board members to provide Dr. Daniel with some information, their thoughts about funding needs, things possibly that we have heard from staff.
Need to have this on. Dr. Daniels, some of the information, I've got it on, right? No? Okay. Dr. Daniels, some of the information that we have received via email, particularly Laura Mills and Caleb Wren, I noted those, and I think from what I see, we should certainly include those in our budget.
Okay.
Is my thought.
I will give a request I know from Mr. Dobson, who is not here. He's very excited to have the ROTC program continue to thrive and to grow, and wants to make sure that we have positions available should they be sought in the budget.
Kind of on that, we are slated for 15 slots at CBGS going forward. So we had been at 14, so we're, I think we'll be at 15 for next year. I don't think we're at 15 this year. I think we're at 15 slated for next year going forward. So that'll give us 5 students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Is that because we procured another seat from another division, or what's the reason for that increase?
No, I think it was part of their working to bump enrollment. I agreed because the number of applicants we've had in the last 2 years has been pretty robust there in terms of numbers and also qualifications of those students. So I felt it was worthwhile to go ahead and agree to having 5 at each class. I think at some point, I think maybe there are 4 seniors in this year's group, so that's where it had dipped 1 year in particular, I think, so.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. Ms. Diggs mentioned the email from Ms. Mills, I think she's a high school nurse. And I read the email. Yes, I would be in total agreement with supporting her requests. I will add, I'm not going to get into this at the moment, there is some legislation pending that is supposed to be going through the General Assembly beginning in January that may change the way we do school nursing and some requirements and so forth. So yes, I would certainly support making improvements to our school nurses, clinics, offices, whatever they're referred to. The other thing that I would like to stress, it's my understanding that the money that was proposed for the SROs is for this current fiscal year. Am I correct in saying?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So the resolution that you all passed last month was for
Right.
SROs for this current year.
For this current
Right.
fiscal year.
Right.
So I would certainly like to see money put in the budget for the next fiscal year as well. And I want to add that I'm very excited that we are finally getting the ball rolling on some weapons detection and some more safety equipment and so forth at the schools. I think it's great, but SROs, we need them, we really do.
I agree, Mr. Morgan, that's my top item, and we've been advocating for this for a long time. I think we've reached a good relationship with the county and the sheriff's department on this. I'm so hoping that we will have applicants to fill the positions and be able to have SROs in our buildings. That's item number 1 for me.
I would add the athletic trainer. I don't know if that was assumed that we
Yes.
would be adding that, but I just want to make that explicit.
And we can advertise. I mean, we advertised in this, we've advertised previously. It's a difficult position to fill, but we can't fill it if we don't have a budget, a placeholder for that salary, so.
Right.
I'd like to see us move forward with that. Like you said, that won't make it any easier to fill,
Right.
but I think we should at least make an effort.
Absolutely.
I would also ask that, based on one of the email from the nurse in the elementary school, that her request for an aide be evaluated. It's something we touched on previously, that when we combine the schools, the question, could one nurse be able to accommodate that? And she certainly has documented that one day very, very well. And it seems to me, also, she's asking for protocols, or different protocols, or more stringent protocols, and that may address it, but I suspect even if we change that, it's going to take some time for faculty to make the change as well.
And families too.
And families too,
Yeah.
yes. I think that's fair. And also, it is elementary school, and I think you are I'm going to make an assumption here, that more likely to have those stomach aches. I'm not feeling well. I'd like to think that's not occurring at that level at the high school, but with that said, it certainly is occurring at the elementary school.
Any other comments, questions, ideas?
I mean, I think that, well, no. mean, the issue's gonna be also, I think that where the rubber meets the road is what we're going to be asking for the teachers. And in thinking about this, I have thought last year, when we had a bit of some friction between the Board of Supervisors and the school board, and as a school board, we discussed eliminating some of the costs of the programs. And that brought out, as we all know, a flood of parents who did not want us to discontinue any of those subsidized programs, understandably. But it seems to me that because parents have an interest in what affects their child, that no one is advocating across the board at that level to supporting our teachers. And so what's always seems to be left at the end of the day is where the cut's going to come. It's going to be at the teachers' salaries. And that's the cornerstone of our school division. So, and I know this is going to be a challenging budget year, and I'm well aware of that, but it is also in our strategic plan that we continue to grow our teachers' salaries, so we can be an employer of choice, and not that we are that, but certainly the employer of last resort. So I don't know what my colleagues feel about what percent we should be looking at. I'm going to throw out 6% because once you go low, it's hard to go high again. So I'm just putting that out there, and I certainly would like to hear from my colleagues in that arena.
I'll speak to that. I agree with you. I know it's going to be a hard budget year, certainly, but having been in the classroom, we know what's what there. And looking ahead, I know what as a retiree, what my insurance is going to go up to this coming year. And we see what happened just with our insurance with Centura and with Blue Cross Anthem. And I doubt that goes down anytime soon in the U.S. So I think that is, looking and comparing, like your chart just said, what the teachers had to pick up with health care. I think it is very important for us to look at that and consider it with the budget. And I would certainly agree with 6.
I'm not going to put a percentage number on it just yet, but I think we need to be able to give teachers and support staff a meaningful increase, not just 1 or 2%. I'm not saying 6 is too much. I'm not putting a number on it just yet. But we all know this, the cost of living is not getting any cheaper for any of us, and it doesn't appear that it's going to in the near future. So if we've got to take care of our people. We have to. If we don't, I've said it 1,000 times, we don't take care of our people, they're going to leave us. So we need to do the very best we can. If 6% will work, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just simply not putting a number on it at this point.
I just, one last thing, and I'm not sure whether we need to advocate for this in our budget or it's going to be part of the salary review, the compensation review, and that has to do with the distinctions between the aides and what their responsibilities are. It's not aide equals aide equals aide, and we've known that. And so there's also the distinction between them, but the base salary, the starting salary for our aides is abysmal. It is absolutely abysmal. And we know, year after year, we cannot keep aides. And whether it's because it's the challenges of the job, or whether it's the pay, the salary, or a combination, I don't know. But we need to do a better job of having a higher starting salary, I believe. I know that's a big ask. So I'm sorry, Dr. Gibbs.
That was, that
jumped
was,
in.
that was my point. I was going to reiterate that point, make that explicit, and I'm confident that with the analysis that's being done on the salary scale, that will come up with a better rationale for our salaries for our teacher assistants. I think attracting and keeping them has been proven to be very difficult at the wage that we are offering. Excuse me. But my major comment about this part is that we need to acknowledge, as Dr. Daniel said, that we have faced the third highest increase in the state in our local composite index. We have to be extremely mindful of that as we are being stewards of the citizens' money in our county. So this is going to be a tightrope act, of course, but we cannot lose sight of that increase. That jump was significant, and it is a direct burden on our citizens.
It is. I believe, Dr. Daniel, hasn't our LCI increased to like 0.66?
0.6637.
Okay, so that's approximately a 7% increase from what it was.
It's definitely 7 percentage points.
Right.
So going from
Percentage
0.59
points.
to
Right.
0.66, yes.
Right. So, we're really it's gonna be a balancing act. It's going to be a balancing act. And if, I'm sorry. If the state should come out like they have done in some previous years and said, here's some money for your teachers, you can give them all a 5% raise, whatever, we have to remember, it all sounds great until we have to put in that 0.66.
Right, exactly.
So it's really gonna be a struggle.
And that's for 2 years.
Correct.
And just a note on that, the maximum LCI is 0.80.
Correct.
So we are quickly approaching the max.
And I couldn't see who was the highest. I couldn't read it.
There are several divisions who are capped at 0.8. Most are Northern Virginia.
Okay.
But off the top of my head, I think Surrey is also 0.8
Surrey.
power plant.
Okay.
Lancaster is 0.8.
Okay. I was wondering if there are any in our.
Yeah, Lancaster's definitely 0.8. But like Arlington and maybe Falls Church, Williamsburg, and maybe 0.8 as well.
Okay.
I can look it up if, and it's also publicly available on the Department of Education website. Just go to 2627 local composite index.
That's interesting that, Lancaster's no surprise. Northumberland, I would have thought, would have equally gone.
Northumberland is up there. They may be
Right.
0.8. If they're not, they are pretty close.
What I thought was interesting is, I think that Lancaster has dwindled in their, it's slowly decreasing in their students. There's more than ours, but it still looked like the same drop.
Trajectory.
But they're also building brand new, or have built a brand new school. So that's interesting that we're kind of following in their path.
Okay, so it is Alexandria, Arlington, Bath, Fairfax City, Falls Church, Goochland, Lancaster, Rappahannock County, not
Right.
Rappahannock High School in Richmond County, and then Surrey.
And what's the thought about why Bath is so high? You say Bath, didn't you?
I think the Homestead.
Oh, thank you. There you go.
Yes.
And then again, it's small, relatively small student population and stuff too, so.
Are there any more questions or comments from board members, superintendents? All right, well, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, board members. Being no more comments, this work session is adjourned.